And class, welcome back. We are doing chapter 10, All Quiet on the Western Front. It is almost Christmas time, so I'm wearing my festive Christmas bows. Um, we left off at the end of chapter 9. That was a really important chapter for Paul's development. He had his first hand-to-hand kill where he kills the French soldier in the shell hole. And then we saw him make it back safely to his trenches. So chapter 10, page 231 in my version. We have dropped in for a good job. 8 of us have to guard a village that has been abandoned because it is being shelled too heavily. In particular, we have to watch the supply dump, as that is not empty yet. We are supposed to provision ourselves from the same store. We are just the right people for that. Kat, Albert, Mueller, Jaden, Dietering, our whole gang is there. Hi is dead, though. But we are mighty lucky all the same. All the other squads have had more casualties than we have. We select as a dugout a reinforced concrete cellar into which steps lead down from above. The entrance is protected by a separate concrete wall. So down at the front, they're guarding a village, or they're stationed there guarding a supply dump until it's emptied out. Now we develop an immense industry. This is an opportunity not only to stretch one's legs, but to stretch one's soul also. We make the best use of such opportunities. The war is too desperate to allow us to be sentimental for long. That is only possible so long as things are not going too badly. After all, we cannot afford to be anything but matter of fact. So matter of fact indeed that I often shudder when a thought from the days before the war comes momentarily into my head, but it does not last long. We have to we have to take things as lightly as we can, so we make the most of every opportunity, and nonsense stands stark and immediate beside horror. It cannot be otherwise. That is how we hearten ourselves. So we zealously set to work to create an ideal of eating and sleeping, of course. The floor is first covered with mattresses, which we haul in from the houses. Even a soldier's behind likes to sit soft. Only in the middle of the floor is there any clear space. So they're setting up in a basement, right? Because this village has been getting shelled, so they're in a basement, and they're hauling stuff in to make it homey. Then we furnish ourselves with blankets and eiderdowns, luxurious soft affairs. There's plenty of everything to be had in the village. Albert and I find a mahogany bed which can be taken to pieces with the sky of blue silk and a lace coverlet. We sweat like monkeys moving it in, but a man cannot let a thing like that slip, and it would certainly be shot to pieces in a day or two. So this giant bed they find, a mahogany bed, and it has a canopy over it, and they take it apart and they're lugging it down piece by piece to the stairs. So think about why they're doing that. I mean, they've got mattresses down there. That's all you need, right? All you need is the mattress. So what may be the purpose for these soldiers of finding this fancy bed and hauling it down there? And why might they be doing that? Kat and I do a little patrolling through the houses. In a very short time, we have collected a dozen eggs and 2 pounds of fairly fresh butter. Suddenly, there is a crash in the drawing room, and an iron stove hurtles through the wall past us and on, a yard from us through the wall behind. 2 holes. It comes from the house opposite where a shell has just landed. The swine, grimaces Kat, and we continue our search. All at once, we prick up our ears, hurry across, and suddenly stand petrified. There, running up and down in a little sty, are 2 live, sucking pigs. We rub our eyes and look once again to make certain. Yes, they are still there. We seize hold of them, no doubt about it, 2 real young pigs. So they're standing in this house, and out of nowhere, a shell hits a neighboring house, and a kitchen stove flies through, breaks through the wall, and almost hits them. And they just continue about their business. Um, Desensitized to this sort of thing. It's just regular now. They find pigs. Think how long it's been since they've had real meat. This will make a grand feed. About 20 yards from our dugout, there is a small house that was used as an officer's billet. In the kitchen is an immense fireplace with 2 ranges, pots, pans, and kettles, everything, even to a stack of small chopped wood in an outhouse, a regular cook's paradise. 2 of our fellows have been out in the fields all the morning hunting for potatoes, carrots, and green peas. We are quite uppish and stiff at the tinned stuff in the supply dump. We want fresh vegetables. In the dining room, there are already 2 heads of cauliflower. The sucking pigs are slaughtered. Cat sees to them. We want to make potato cakes to go with the roast, but we cannot find a grater for the potatoes. However, the difficulty is soon got over. With a nail, we punch a lot of holes in a pot lid, and there we have a grater. 3 fellows put on thick gloves to protect their fingers against the grater. 2 others peel the potatoes, and the business gets going. Cat takes charge of the sucking pigs, the carrots, the peas, and the cauliflower. He even mixes a white sauce for the cauliflower. I fry the pancakes 4 at a time. After 10 minutes, I get the knack of tossing the pan so that the pancakes, which are done on one side, sail up, turn in the air, and are caught again as they come down. The sucking pigs are roasted whole. We all stand around them as before an altar. In the meantime, we receive visitors, a couple of wireless men who are generously invited to the feed. So wireless meaning a radio. They sit in the living room where there is a piano. One of them plays, the other sings an Anderweser. He sings feebly, but with a rather Saxon accent. All the same, it moves us as we stand at the fireplace, preparing the good things. Then we begin to realize we are in for trouble. The observation balloons have spotted the smoke from our chimney, and the shells start to drop on us. So the French observation balloons saw their smoke, and now they are being bombed. Think about the tone as we read through here. Remember, tone is the narrator's attitude towards what's happening. Okay, think about what kind of tone we're seeing. They are those damn spraying little daisy cutters that make only a small hole and scatter widely close to the ground. They keep dropping closer and closer all around us. Still, we cannot leave the grub in the lurch. A couple of splinters whiz through the top of the kitchen window. The roast is ready, but frying the pancakes is getting difficult. The explosions come so fast that the splinters strike again and again against the wall of the house and sweep in through the window. Whenever I hear a shell coming, I drop down on one knee with the pan and the pancakes and duck behind the wall of the window. Immediately afterwards, I am up again and going on with the frying. They're being bombed and could die at any moment, and getting the pancakes done, watching the roast. The tone right there, it's almost just sort of an annoyance, right? These bombs, they're making it harder for me to make my pancakes. The Saxon stopped singing. A fragment has smashed the piano. At last, everything is ready, and we organize the transport of it back to the dugout. After the next explosion, 2 men dash across the 50 yards of the dugout with the pots of vegetables. We see them disappear. The next shot. Everyone ducks, and then 2 more trot off, each with a big can of finest grade coffee, and reach the dugout before the next explosion. So think of the imagery, like you're running across carrying these pots, trying not to spill it. He uses the word trot. They trot off. Not they dash off running for their lives, because that's what they're doing, but a trot's usually a more leisurely, take your time sort of thing. So what tone are we getting here? Certainly not a desperate one, not a fearful one. Kind of comical, really. I mean, this is a very light, comical mood, like an inconvenience for them. Then Cat and Crop seize the masterpiece, the big dish with the brown, roasted, sucking pigs. A screech, a knee bend, and away they race over the 50 yards of open country. I stay to finish my last 4 pancakes. Twice I have to drop to the floor. After all, it means 4 pancakes more, and they are my favorite dish. Then I grab the plate with the great pile of cakes and squeeze myself behind the house door. A hiss, a crash, and I gallop off with the plate clamped against my chest with both hands. I am almost in. There is a rising screech. I bound. I run like a deer, sweep round the wall. Fragments clatter against the concrete. I tumble down the cellar steps. My elbows are skinned, but I have not lost a single pancake, nor even upset the plate. So he's running, clinging the pancakes to his chest, and he dives down the stairs. But he's got all his pancakes. At 2 o'clock, we start the meal. It lasts till 6. We drink coffee until 6:30, officers' coffee from the supply dump, and smoke officers' cigarettes and cigars, also from the supply dump. Punctually at 6:30, we begin supper. At 10 o'clock, we throw the bones of the sucking pigs outside the door. Then there is cognac and rum, also from the blessed supply dump, and once again, long, fat cigars with belly bands. Jadin says that it lacks only one thing, girls from an officer's brothel. Late in the evening, we hear meowing. A little gray cat sits in the entrance. We entice it in and give it something to eat, and that wakes up our own appetites once more. Still chewing, we lie down to sleep. But the night is bad. We have eaten too much fat. Fresh baby pig is very gripping to the bowels. There is an everlasting coming and going in the dugout. 2, 3 men with their pants down are always sitting about outside and cursing. I have been out 9 times myself. About 4 o'clock in the morning, we reach a record. All 11 men, guards and visitors, are squatting outside. So this glorious meal, they're not used to all this real food. Their bodies aren't. So they have this wonderful meal, and what's their reward? They're all got terrible runs. Burning houses stand out like torches against the night. Shells lumber across and crash down. Munition columns tear along the street. On one side, the supply dump has been ripped open. In spite of all the flying fragments, the drivers of the munition columns pour in like a swarm of bees and pounce on the bread. We let them have their own way. If we said anything, it would only mean a good hiding for us. So we go differently about it. We explain that we are the guard and so know our way about. We get hold of the tin stuff and exchange it for the things we are short of. What does it matter anyhow? In a while, it will all be blown to pieces. For ourselves, we take some chocolate from the depot and eat it in slabs. Cat says it is good for loose bowels. Almost a fortnight passes thus in eating, drinking, and roaming about. So a fortnight would be 2 weeks. No one disturbs us. The village gradually vanishes under the shells, and we lead a charmed life. So long as any part of the supply dump still stands, we don't worry. We desire nothing better than to stay here till the end of the war. Jadin has become as fastidious that, fastidious means like stingy, thrifty, has become so fastidious that he only half smokes his cigars. With his nose in the air, he explains to us that he was brought up that way. And Cat is most cheerful. In the morning, his first call is, Emile, bring in the caviar and coffee. We put on extraordinary airs. Every man treats the other as his valet, bounces him and gives him orders. There's something itching under my foot. Crop, my man, catch that louse at once, says Lear, poking out his leg at him like a ballet girl, and Albert drags him up the stairs by the foot. Jadin, what? Stand at ease, Jadin, and what's more, don't say what. Say yes, sir. Now, Jadin. Jadin retorts to the well-known phrase from Goethe's Gott von Berlichingen, with which he is always free. So they're acting like there's these rich people without a care in the world. After 8 more days, we receive orders to go back. The palmy days are over. 2 big motor lorries take us away. They are stacked high with planks. Nevertheless, Albert and I erect on top our 4-poster bed, complete with blue silk canopy, mattress, and 2 lace coverlets. So they're on the back of a truck, and they put the whole bed together, this giant bed, on the back of the truck. And behind it at the head is stowed a bag full of choicest edibles. We often dip into it, and the tough ham sausages, the tins of liver sausages, the conserves, the boxes of cigars rejoice our hearts. Each man has a bag to himself. Crop and I have rescued 2 big red armchairs as well. They stand inside the bed, and we sprawl back in them as in a theater box. So again, just this like hilarious image. They've got the bed put together on the back of the truck, and then these 2 giant plush red velvet chairs, and they're just sprawled back in them like kings as they're driving back. Above us swells the silken cover like a baldaquin. Each man has a long cigar in his mouth, and thus from aloft we survey the scene. Between us stands a parrot cage that we found for the cat. She is coming with us and lies in the cage before her saucer of meat and purrs. Slowly the lorries roll down the road. We sing. Behind us shells are sending up fountains from the now utterly abandoned village. So that scene there, it's quite a relief from the tension of what we have. Writers purposely vary tension as you go through a text. It's been really tense for a long time. We get comedic relief. We get some comedy in there, some lighter mood. What else do you think Remarque's trying to show with that whole scene of them guarding that supply dump and the way that they're living and acting? What do you think his purpose is beyond just a little bit of relief from the tension? Think about that. A few days later, we are sent to evacuate a village. On the way, we meet the fleeing inhabitants, trundling their goods and chattels along with them in wheelbarrows, in perambulators, and on their backs. Their figures are bent, their faces full of grief, despair, haste, and resignation. The children hold on to their mother's hands, and often an older girl leads the little ones who stumble onward and are forever looking back. A few carry miserable-looking dolls. All are silent as they pass us by. We are marching in column. The French certainly will not fire on a town in which there are still inhabitants. But a few minutes later, the air screams, the earth heaves, cries ring out. A shell has landed among our rear squad. We scatter and fling ourselves down on the ground, but at that moment I feel the instinctive alertness leave me, which hitherto has always made me do unconsciously the right thing under fire. The thought leaps up with a terrible, throttling fear. You are lost. And the next moment a blow sweeps like a whip over my left leg. I hear Albert cry out. He's beside me. Quick, up, Albert, I yell, for we are lying unsheltered in the open field. He staggers up and runs. I keep beside him. We have to get over a hedge. It is higher than we are. Crop seizes a branch. I heave him up by the leg. He cries out. I give him a swing and he flies over. With one bound I follow him and fall into a ditch that lies behind the hedge. Our faces are smothered with duckweed and mud, but the cover is good, so we wade in up to our necks. Whenever a shell whistles, we duck our heads under the water. After we have done this a dozen times, I am exhausted. Let's get away or I'll fall in and drown, groans Albert. Where has it got you? I ask him. In the knee, I think. Can you run? I think. Then out. We make for the ditch beside the road and stooping, run along it. The shelling follows us. The road leads towards the munition dump. If that goes up, there won't be so much as a bootlace left of us. So we change our plan and run diagonally across country. Albert begins to drag. You go. I'll come after, he says, and throws himself down. I seize him by the arm and shake him. Up, Albert. If once you lie down, you'll never get any farther. Quick, I'll hold you up. At last we reach a small dugout. Crop pitches in and I bandage him up. The shot is just a little above the knee. Then I take a look at myself. My trousers are bloody and my arm too. Albert binds up my wounds with his field dressing. Already he is no longer able to move his leg, and we both wonder how he managed to get this far. Fear alone made it possible. We should have run even if our feet had been shot off. We would have run on the stumps. I still crawl a little. I call out to a passing ambulance wagon which picks us up. It is full of wounded. There is an Army medical lance corporal with it who sticks an anti-tetanus needle into our chest. In the dressing station, we arrange matters so that we lie side by side. They give us a thin soup which we spoon down greedily and scornfully because we are accustomed to better times but are hungry all the same. Now for home, Albert, I say. Let's hope so, he replies. I only wish I knew what I've got. The pain increases. The bandages burn like fire. We drink and drink, one glass of water after another. How far above the knee am I hit? Asks Crop. At least 4 inches, Albert, I answer. Actually, it is perhaps 1. I've made up my mind, he says after a while. If they take off my leg, I'll put an end to it. I won't go through life as a cripple. So we lie there with our thoughts and wait. In the evening, we are hauled on to the chopping block. Chopping block is just what it sounds like. That's where the doctor looks and decides if he's going to amputate. I am frightened and think quickly what I ought to do, for everyone knows that the surgeons in the dressing stations amputate on the slightest provocation. That means that the slightest indication it needs to be done, they will amputate. Under the great business, that is much simpler than complicated patching. I think of Kemerick. Whatever happens, I will not let them chloroform me, even if I have to crack a couple of their skulls. Chloroform is what they would use for the anesthesia to put them to sleep. It is all right. The surgeon pokes around in the wound and a blackness comes before my eyes. Don't carry on so, he says gruffly and hacks away. The instruments gleam in the bright light like marvelous animals. The pain is insufferable. 2 orderlies hold my arm fast, but I break loose with one of them and try to crash into the surgeon's spectacles just as he notices and springs back. Chloroform the scoundrel, he roars madly. I'm like, scoundrel? This is your countryman here. Then I become quiet. Pardon me, Herr Doctor. I will keep still, but do not chloroform me. Well now, he cackles and takes up his instrument again. He is a fair fellow, not more than 30 years old, with scars and disgusting gold spectacles. Now I see that he is tormenting me. He's merely raking about in the wound and looking up surreptitiously or secretly at me over his glasses. My hands squeeze round the grip. I'll kick the bucket before he will get a squeak out of me. So I'll die before I make noise. Remember, one of the themes that we've been following, questioning of authority. We've seen they've been let down by their teachers, they feel. They've been let down by the generals in the army who are making all these decisions to go to war, let down by Himmelstas, their immediate superior, training them with the way they've been treated. And now we have doctors. Again, someone you're supposed to be able to trust, right? But look how this doctor is acting. So again, all these authority figures, all these people we're supposed to trust to do right are letting us down. And we see that by this doctor having fun making him experience pain. He has fished out a piece of shell and tosses it to me. Apparently he is pleased at my self-control, for he now sets my leg carefully in splints and says, "Tomorrow you'll be off home." Then I am put in plaster. When I am back again with Krop, I tell him apparently a hospital train comes in tomorrow morning. We must work the Army Medical Sergeant Major so that we can keep together, Albert. I managed to slip the Sergeant Major 2 of my cigars with belly bands and then tip the word to him. He smells the cigars and says, "Have you got any more of them?" "Another good handful," I say, "and my comrade," I point to Krop, "he has some as well. We might possibly be glad to hand them to you out the window of the hospital train in the morning." He understands, of course, smells them once again, and says, "Done." We cannot get a minute's sleep all night. One of them sings hymns in a high, cracked tenor before he begins to gurgle. Another has crept out of his bed to the window. He lies in front of it, as though he wants to look out for the last time. Our stretchers stand on the platform. We wait for the train. It rains and the station has no roof. Our blankets are thin. We have waited already 2 hours. The sergeant major looks after us like a mother. Although I feel pretty bad, I do not let our scheme out of my mind. Casually, I let him see the packet and give him 1 cigar in advance. In exchange, the sergeant major covers us over with a waterproof sheet. "Albert, old man," I suddenly bethink myself, "our 4-poster bed and the cat." "And the club chairs," he adds. "Yes, the club chairs with red plush. In the evening we used to sit in them like lords, and intended later on to let them out by the hour. 1 cigarette per hour. It might have turned into a regular business, a real good living. And our bags of grub, too, Albert." We grow melancholy. We might have made some use of the things. If only the train left 1 day later, Cat would be sure to find us and bring us the stuff. What damned hard luck. In our bellies there's gruel, mean hospital stuff, and in our bags roast pork. But we are so weak that we cannot work up any more excitement about it. The stretchers are sopping wet by the time the train arrives in the morning. The sergeant major sees to it that we are put in the same car. There is a crowd of Red Cross nurses. Krop is stowed in below. I am lifted up and told to get into the bed above him. "Good God!" I exclaim suddenly. "What is it?" asks the sister. I cast a glance at the bed. It is covered with clean, white, snow white linen that even has got the marks of the iron still on it, and my shirt has gone 6 weeks without being washed and is terribly muddy. "Can't you get in by yourself?" asks the sister gently. "Why, yes," I say in a sweat, "but take off the bed cover first." "What for?" I feel like a pig. "Must I get in there? It will get—" I hesitate. "A little bit dirty?" she suggests helpfully. "That doesn't matter. We'll wash it again afterwards." No, not that," I say excitedly. I am not equal to such overwhelming refinement. "When you have been lying out there in the trenches, surely we can wash a sheet," she goes on. I look at her. She is young and crisp, spotless and neat, like everything here. A man cannot realize that it isn't for officers only, and feels himself strange and in some way even alarmed. All the same, the woman is a tormentor. She's going to force me to say it. It is only— I try again. Surely she must know what I mean. "What is it then?" "Because of the lice," I bawl out at last. She laughs. "Well, they must have a good day for once, too." Now I don't care anymore. I scramble into bed and pull up the covers. A hand gropes over the bed cover. The sergeant major. He goes off with the cigars. An hour later, we notice we are moving. I wake up during the night. Crop is restless too. The train rides easily over the rails. I cannot realize it all yet. A bed, a train, home. Albert, I whisper. Yes. Do you know where the latrine is? The door's on the right, I think. I'm going to have a look. It is dark. I grope for the edge of the bed and cautiously try to slide down, but my foot finds no support. I begin to slip. The plaster leg is no help, and with a crash, I lie on the floor. Damn, I say. Have you bumped yourself? Asks Crop. You could hear that well enough for yourself, I growl. My head. A door opens at the rear of the car. The sister comes with a light and looks at me. He's fallen out of bed. She feels my pulse and smooths my forehead. You haven't any fever, though. No, I agree. Have you been dreaming then? She asks. Perhaps. I evade. The interrogation starts again. She looks at me with her clear eyes, and the more wonderful and sweet she is, the less I am able to tell her what I want. I'm lifted up into bed again. That will be all right. As soon as she goes, I must try to climb down again. If she were an old woman, it might be easier to say what a man wants, but she's still very young, at the most 25. It can't be done. I cannot possibly tell her. Then Albert comes to my rescue. He's not bashful. It makes no difference to him who's upset. He calls to the sister. She turns around. Sister, he wants. But no more does Albert know how to express it modestly and decently. Out there, we say it in a single word, but here, such a lady. All at once, he remembers his school days and finishes hastily. He wants to leave the room, sir. Sister. Oh, says the sister, but he shouldn't climb out of bed with plaster bandage. What do you want then? She says, turning to me. I am in mortal terror at this turn, for I haven't any idea what the things are called professionally. She comes to my help. Little or big? Shocking business. I sweat like a pig and say shyly, well, only quite a little one. At any rate, it produces the effect. I get a bottle. After a few hours, I'm not the only one, and by morning we are quite accustomed to it and ask for what we want without any false modesty. So he just had to pee, but out in the trenches on the front, like whatever. I mean, they sit around with the pants down on their little box there and poop together, right? But all of a sudden, by this young woman, he just doesn't even know how to act or how to even ask for what he needs. The train travels slowly. Sometimes it halts and the dead are unloaded. It halts often. Albert is feverish. I don't feel too bad. I have some pain, but the worst of it is that apparently there are still lice under the plaster bandage. They itch terribly and I cannot scratch myself. We sleep through the days. The country glides quietly past the window. The third night we reach Urbisal. I hear from the sister that Albert is to be put off at the next station because of his fever. How far does the train go? I ask. To Cologne. Albert, I say, we stick together, you see. On the sister's next round, I hold my breath and press it up into my head. My face swells and turns red. She stops. Are you in pain? Yes, I groan, all of a sudden. She gives me a thermometer and goes on. I would not have been under Kat's tuition if I did not know what to do now. These army thermometers are not made for old soldiers. All one has to do is drive the quicksilver up and then it stays without falling again. I stick the thermometer under my arm at a slant and flip it steadily with my forefinger. Then I give it a shake. I send it up to 100.2, but that is not enough. A match held cautiously near to it brings it up to 101.6. As the sister comes back, I blow myself out, breathe in short gasps, goggle at her with vacant eyes, toss about restlessly, and mutter in a whisper, I can't bear it any longer. She notes me down on a slip of paper. I know perfectly well my plaster bandage will not be reopened if it can be avoided. Albert and I are put off together. We are in the same room in a Catholic hospital. That is a piece of luck. The Catholic infirmaries are noted for their good treatment and good food. The hospital has been filled up from our train. There are a great many bed cases amongst them. We do not get examined today because there are too few surgeons. The flat trolleys with the rubber wheels pass continually along the corridor, and always with someone stretched at full length upon them. A damnable position, stretched out full length like that. The only time it is good is when one is asleep. The night is very disturbed. No one can sleep. Toward morning we doze a little. I wake up just as it grows light. The doors stand open and I hear voices from the corridor. The others wake up too. One fellow who has been there a couple of days already explains it to us. Up here in the corridor, every morning the sisters say prayers. They call it morning devotion. And so that you can get your share, they leave the door open. So the nuns get up very early to pray. It's a Catholic hospital. There's nuns acting as nurses, and they're up early praying, and they leave the door open so the soldiers can hear. No doubt it is well meant, but it gives us aches in our heads and bones. Such an absurdity, I say, just when a man dropped off to sleep. All the light cases are up here. That's why they do it here, he replies. Albert groans. I get furious and call out, "Be quiet out there!" A minute later, a sister appears. In her black and white dress, she looks like a beautiful tea cozy. "Shut the door, will you, sister?" says someone. "We are saying prayers. That is why the door is open," she responds. "But we want to go on sleeping." "Prayer is better than sleeping." She stands there and smiles innocently. "And it is 7 o'clock already." Albert groans again. "Shut the door," I snort. She is quite disconcerted. Apparently she cannot understand. "But we are saying prayers for you too." "Shut the door anyway." She disappears, leaving the door open. The intoning of the litany proceeds. I feel savage and say, "I'm going to count up to 3. If it doesn't stop before then, I'll let something fly." "Me too," says another. I count up to 5. Then I take hold of the bottle, aim, and heave it through the door into the corridor. It smashes into 1,000 pieces. The praying stops. A swarm of sisters appear and reproach us in concern. "Shut the door," we yell. They withdraw. The little one who came first is the last to go. "Heathen," she chirps, but shuts the door all the same. We have won. And I'm going to pause right there. So that's the first half of chapter 10.